now.
You know, when you bury your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, your head is down in the sand, and what is left up there?
Rest of your body.
It is the rest of your body and probably your nakedness. So essentially, if you never get to have those conversations early enough, you don't even realize, because you see, a lot of times children are in school, and that is why we are even holding this conversation.
Yeah.
We are stuck with children at home. So we begin to see certain things. We don't know how to address them. You know, if you don't talk about basic things, then having a conversation about huge things then becomes a big challenge.
Becomes a big challenge.
Yeah, it becomes a big challenge.
So we need to stop presuming that our children do not know alcohol or any of these other forms of drugs.
The advertisements.
Yes.
Yeah, advertisements that come on TV, on radio, and so on. Think of even 2-year-olds or 3-year-old will be singing along. Yeah. So it means they already know, and as they see that, they will say, even me, I want that one. Especially if you have it in the house.
I see daddy and
yes,
mommy
even
take
me,
it.
even me, I want that one. And they can even sing along what the advert is about. So it means that right from the age of 2 years or even younger, children are already exposed in terms of just the messaging that comes through our screens. And now again, if you allow them to also use phones, which has internet, so it means they can easily access.
And controlled access.
And controlled access. And so even if they are watching cartoons and so on, remember there are always these pop-up
advertisements.
Advertisements. They are going to click, and already, so there is so much exposure already. So just presuming is going to be a big challenge. And also the other thing is taking it for granted that probably the school is taking care of that. You can't leave it for the schools to do that, because you've not even looked at the curriculum.
Yes.
What does it cover? Yeah. And what the curriculum covers needs to be reinforced at home. Yeah. Or rather, what is happening at home is being reinforced by the school.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And we'll be getting to how we can, get to best handle these situations and know how to best initiate these conversations with our children. But let's just try to understand, some of the consequences that arise from not having these conversations with our children early or approaching them the wrong way. And I want us to start with, the psychological challenges that actually come along with this. When we talk about psychological challenges, or rather warning signs that tend to show when the problem is already there. Psychologically, what does this even category mean? Psychological telltales.
Yeah, internally, the emotions that people go through. And remember, I say that even use of drugs, alcohol and drugs, is actually a coping strategy. So it means we have the stressors. And children also have stresses. Yes, so those stressors, and then build up with the negative emotions. What is it that they are experiencing? Yeah. So some of the things could be anxiety. There could be fear. There could be anger. All these things are things which are built within. How do they manage this?
Yes.
Yeah. Even aggression. Yeah. So some of those things then within the child, how do they get to? And especially if they cannot speak up, then it means that they even have a lower self-esteem. So with a lower self-esteem, it means that you're always suffering in silence.
But even as parents, when we tend to see some of these behaviors, anxiety or depression or anger bursts, we tend to be aggressive towards that as opposed to understanding. Do you think this could also be contributing to our children sinking further in this pit?
Oh yeah, because you will only notice the changes if you know your child. Yeah, so that you say, why are you, doing something out of the ordinary? Why have you suddenly become very aggressive?
Yes.
Yeah, it means that you must have noticed that this was happening. If a child, for example, at the age of 2 years is throwing tantrums and so on, because that is also a behavior that parents also have a challenge dealing with.
Yes.
If they get away with it, it means the behavior is reinforced. So it means that they grow with that. And therefore, as they grow older, probably they will not be screaming and rolling on the ground, but probably will be showing some emotions that just say, this is a problem.
Okay.
So again, if you meet that aggression with aggression, it means that you are even building a higher wall.
You're
between
fueling
you and
that
the child.
fire.
Yes.
Now, let's quickly go to some of the educational problems that actually start to show as early warning signs. And mind you, these are the early days when the problem is now starting to manifest itself.
Yeah.
Education-wise, how is the child's education, a part side of the education, affected?
One key thing, because most parents are focused on academic issues, if there is a drop in school performance,
Yes.
in their class performance, they are not doing well. Maybe the teachers, you know, they were doing well before, and suddenly you see that they continue to drop. That is actually an indication that something must be happening. From the school setting, do you get reports from the school about what is happening with your child? Even things like not completing assignments, if they were doing that before. In terms of behavior, you know, are they changing friends in school? So that when now the school begins to give you reports,
Yeah.
and you see, the unfortunate thing is parents usually deny, not my child.
Yes.
It can't be. You
And
know?
there was actually a meme circulating that, you know, parents, do you know, unakubali sasa that mtoto wako ni sumbua ama unasema alikuwa anaonewa bado in school, because you always get reports, your child did this, your child did that, did this, did that, did this, did that, but you choose to refuse to accept the situation.
Yeah. And skipping classes.
Yeah.
Skipping classes is also another thing that they would be doing. So there are things that happen with, and then even in school, are they probably demanding more? Yeah, demanding more from, let's say, we still have parents who give children fees to go and pay, and then you find the money is also, gone, and so on. So generally that truancy that happens, suddenly you find that they are not very forthright with coming to school and also giving excuses in terms of their performance. That becomes a warning sign
that we need to take seriously.
Yes, that something is happening with your child.
And now that brings in the whole issue of their age. You know, when you're getting some of these reports, does their age also dictate some of this, how seriously you need to take some of these early warning signs that are coming when it comes to their matters to do with education?
Yeah, so again, as they transition into teenage, you know, the preteen into teenage is one area where we have even conduct issues or mental health issues begin to be you begin to see, you begin to see that happening. So progressively, like you said, you need to start early.
Yes.
So you can see your child will always come and report to you things to do with their friends and so on. But as they get into preteen, they begin to become more secretive and so on. You know, yes, there is the aspect of moving more to their peers rather than you, But again, you need to understand that to what extent is this happening?
The degree varies.
Yes, the degree varies. Yeah. So as they transition preteen into teenage, that becomes an area that now you need to be more vigilant.
And speaking of that transitioning phase, that brings me to now this, when it comes to their social or behavioral early signs that tend to show, and especially now when they're moving to the teen years, when they're becoming self-aware, very conscious about their person and what they do, and this sense of independence starts to come through. But what are some of those early warning signs that we need to look out for when they're entering, especially this phase, when it comes to their behavior?
Now, some of the things is, first of all, as a parent, you need to know who are your children's friends. Yeah, like I said, you need to know them. If you don't know them, you won't notice the changes.
Yes.
Because if they had these kind of friends, probably they even come to your house, or you have also made an effort to go to their friends' houses so that you get to know who their parents are. But now suddenly you find that they have changed friends.
Yes.
You would want to know why the friends, and then what kind of friends is he or she now having.
Yeah.
The other issue is if they have been taking phone calls in your presence, and suddenly you find that they need to go and hide somewhere, or you know, probably there's even a caller who does not want to say who they are and so on. Those are actually signs that something else could also be happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you need to take note of that.
Yes.
Kwanza that walking away, that walking away behavior, we have all been there. Now let's quickly move on to now how this early warning signs tend to manifest physically on the child.
Yeah.
When they have been using alcohol or other substances, it gets to a point where it starts to manifest physically. And what are some of those signs that we need to look out for as parents?
And those ones are much, much easier to notice, particularly if you're observant.
Yes.
Because all these things, we'll keep emphasizing that you need to know your child so that then you begin to see that those changes. Because their eye color, yeah, do you find that maybe they were clear and now they begin to have...
They're bloodshot.
Yes, they are bloodshot. And then they will give you an excuse about how they're having an eye problem, and probably now they want to use eye drops to clear. Yeah, that could be a sign. What about the fact that they like to wear long sleeved and even the hoodies? Yeah, so those, what is it that is changing about them? Because it means that there could be something. If they like to wear long sleeved, maybe there are they could be injecting, and therefore you want to hide the
marks.
Yes,
yeah.
the marks that are there. Yeah. There could also be signs like, even in terms of the kind of clothing that they wear.
Yeah.
Suddenly you find that the kind of clothing they wear has shifted. So, are they wearing, if it is Rastafarian colors? Previously they were not oriented in that way, and suddenly they have this.
Yeah.
Do you have like other paraphernalia like spoons? Spoons getting lost, or they have spoons, because you see for some of the drugs, you need a spoon to
heat it over a candle.
Yes, to heat it up. So those could also be changes, and generally trying to be away from the others. So those are some of the things that you would be able to see. Yeah, and then probably they start using aerosols. They were not spraying before. Now they would want to
spray to mask a different scent that
even
might be there.
They could also become very untidy.
Yes.
When previously that was not happening. Yeah, because there are certain drugs like cannabis. People who use cannabis don't like showering.
Hygiene also becomes a problem.
Yes, hygiene becomes a problem. So if you find that more and more, then it is something that you'd want to check on.
Now, I like the fact that you mentioned that, some of these physical early warning signs are the easiest to pick up because these are things that you see as a parent. But if you choose to turn a blind eye, you are just going to be contributing to the problem that your child is already in. Now, how do you start that conversation with your child? Number one, you started by mentioning this during when we were starting this conversation, and it is all about starting early. We need to emphasize this point of starting early, but now the question is, how early is too early? Or when is this early supposed to happen?
As early as 2 years.
2 years?
Yes, as early as 2 years, because when we talk about alcohol and drug use, from the NACADA surveys for primary and even secondary schools, alcohol was the biggest challenge. Challenge number one. Number two is prescription medicine. Yeah.
Over the counter.
Over the counter. And you know that at home we have quite a number of them.
Yes.
Yes. And like children's medicine, sweet, they've been sweetened. So it means that they are likely to, the 5 ml spoon that you're giving them, they would like more.
Yes.
Yes, because it is sweet. So you begin the conversation as early as 2 years and talk about the dangerous substances in the house, why they should not take medicines that do not belong to them, and why you only take medicine as prescribed by the doctor. Yeah.
So again, that boils down to age-appropriate conversations.
Age-appropriate conversation, but you cannot wait until teenage. It will be too late.
Yeah.
Because you begin to talk about small things when you have their full attention. Because you see, at 2 years, even as they begin to go to school, you are still the center of their attention as a parent.
Yes.
Before they get to other people. So it means that they listen. Even when they go to school, they're likely to come back and tell you how school was, their friends, or so-and-so brought sweets. because those are other things. You know, today we have sweets, even things like mabuyu that have been laced with drugs.
Yeah.
And you know, it is about things that children like. So that is why you need to begin as early as possible.
As early as possible. And actually, there's an article that I came across yesterday that actually said that, you know, by the time your child is getting to 15 years, 62% of all preteens have tasted alcohol by the age of 11. So by the time they're getting to 15, they have already downed a whole bottle of one form of alcohol or the other. So start those conversations early, tailor them to be age appropriate. Now, number two, when it comes to having these conversations with our children, we tend to think that they do not know. But why is it important to ask them what they know about, you know, alcohol and other substances?
One of the things that actually drive and keep children to use drugs are actually the myths and the misconceptions that are there.
Okay.
Yeah. What is it that their friends are saying? And remember, we say that the other thing that you need to understand are the ups and downs that children go through. You know, as they are in school, are they being bullied? Are they shy? Those are some of the things that they could be going through in terms of their emotions. Now, when it comes to looking at how are they coping with this, then it becomes even a bigger challenge. Yeah. So you need to actually have that conversation with them so that you are able to understand what is it that they know. And that is why it becomes important as a parent that you also have, if you have misconceptions, then it is going to be very difficult for you to correct the kind of message, because what is it that their friends are saying about alcohol, for example? What are their friends saying about bangi? Because probably their friends are saying, oh, you know, if you want to study hard, take bangi. Yes, you know, it sharpens, it improves your creativity.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you want to be creative, then this is it. Yeah. If I want to pay attention, then this is it. If I want to take away the anxiety, then this is it. So that is why it's important to know what kind of messages are they getting.
Yes.
And that brings us again to advertisements. You know, advertisements do not target the user. The one who is using is already in the box.
in the market.
It's already in the box.
Yes.
They focus on
non-users.
Prospective users.
Yes.
That is why if you ask them, if you were to drink today, which one would you? Yeah? Then they are likely to pick one depending on the advertisement that is there.
So our children always know something. It is good to know what they know and correct if there's any form of misinformation that they may be having. Now, for parents who are trying to have this conversation with their child after they have found out that their child is using one form of substance or the other, most of us tend to flip.
Oh, yeah.
Unakasirika, unatafuta kiboko, you chase them, you go the aggressive way. What would be the best approach when it comes to having this conversation with your child if you suspect or have found out that they are already using?
You must stay calm.
Stay calm, which is
calm.
very hard.
Yes, stay calm. And that's why we're saying even when you give quality time.
Yes.
We've mentioned quality time before. Those 10 minutes is getting into the space. It could be 10, 20 minutes, depending on how much time we have, but let's talk of the minimum 10 minutes. It's getting into the space of the child and listening to them, not you occupying that space. And that is when you're going to learn some of the challenges that they have. Now, when it comes to keeping calm.
Yes.
Yeah?
How do we keep calm?
Yes. How do you keep calm?
Yeah.
Yes. So we have the C. Yeah? The C, because you have just found out, the easiest thing to do is to, you know, get aggressive, shout at them and so on. And you know, the moment you shout, it means they will never come to you with any other conversations that they have. So you want to consider, yeah? You want to consider if you are really ready for this kind of conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that is how you keep calm. So when you have considered if you are in a position to actually begin to listen to this conversation, remember staying calm means you want to hear from the person.
Control yourself first.
Yes, you
All
are
right.
going to control yourself. You must to control even your thoughts, because your thoughts are the ones that run quickly and say,
And
oh,
dictate some of the actions that you resort to.
yes, yes, the actions also. So you must consider that first, and then, then you say, I don't think I'm ready for this. Yeah. So the A, then you are going to assess.
Assess the situation.
Am I really ready to have this? Because you want to get as much information as possible. If you find that you are too angry
to have this
to
conversation.
have that conversation, then you leave it until later, so that you can just calm down. So the L now is to leave it until later on. But you can't leave it until forever. You know, it shouldn't go beyond 24 hours. So that means that the M, make a plan. Make a plan on what you would actually want to do within that 24 hours.
Yes.
And of course, expect that they are going to deny. Yeah,
Of course,
denial
at
is going to
first.
be there.
Yeah.
They are also going to be angry. And I'm not even sure as a parent, you actually expect them to say, oh yes, I'm using. Probably you expect that, no, I'm not using, so that then you have this conversation.
But of course, denial is the first stage of, the acceptance process when having this conversation with your child.
Yeah.
Not unless you had fostered some sense of trust between your child from way back then, where they can feel comfortable enough to trust you with saying, yes, I am, and this is why.
Yeah.
All right. Now, when it comes to now communicating and, having a lasting effect from these conversations with your children, we tend to communicate the consequences as opposed to the risks that are involved when it comes to using substances. Which way would you advise most parents to go with? Because you either choose to use fear or knowledge to have this conversation with your child.
So that's why you're even finding out what is it that they know about drugs. And again, if you are going to talk about things which are in the future,
yes,
that again they cannot relate with. Talk about the immediate consequences. Yeah, the immediate consequences is the best thing. Something that they can relate with. That is why we are talking of age appropriateness.
Yes.
It's going to be age appropriate, and then hold that conversation in such a way that you are dealing with the immediate issues. This is what it does to your brain. Yeah, you're going to lose your capacity to make decisions. It can make you out of control. Things that they can relate with. It is against the school rules. Yeah, and if you found you're going to be, you're going to be expelled or things like that. Things that they can relate with.
Knowledge-based, as opposed to using fear. If you take, you're going to fall and die. And that doesn't even communicate what will result to you dying, what will cause the consequences. So communicate knowledge as opposed to.
Yeah, they already know so many people who have used or are using and are not dead. Probably including you.
Yes.
Yeah, including you who is talking. And again, when you use the substances, you actually lose ground in terms of stating a position.
All right.
Yeah. So you already lost the moral authority. So you can't talk of, you will get cancer, you will die, you will, those are things that they cannot relate with, because again, now you are exaggerating.
Yes.
They know so many people who are not experiencing that.
All
so
right.
having the correct knowledge
is important.
Is very important.
Have a knowledge-based conversation with your child. Let them understand the why behind this conversation. Don't just say it is bad, you will die. That is the consequence. So what will lead to death? You need to understand the knowledge that leads to the ultimate destination. Now, you've just mentioned the fact that, if you are a parent and you are using, you sort of lose some moral ground when it comes to talking about this. But when it comes to turning it around and using your experiences to further emphasize and hammer that conversation in, and of course, this we're talking about past experiences.
Yeah.
Does that help the situation? If you as a parent were using back then, but you suffered the consequences and now you have stopped, is it good to use your personal experience to have this conversation with your child?
You could even be using as you speak and just addressing that with the child, how you are having challenges in just stopping. Yeah, you can even say, you know what, I have tried to stop.
Yes.
And it is so easy to start. Yeah, you can easily get into this, but now stopping then becomes an issue. Yeah. So if you are able to talk to the child about the challenges that you have,
that you went through or
Yes,
still
yes,
going through.
yes, that you're still going through, then they begin to understand that, oh, so my dad or my mom is actually struggling with getting out of it. The challenge again is if you begin to tell them how, even in your teenage, remember last time we were talking about the myths and misconceptions?
Yes.
That if young people will try, so it is normal for people to try.
To experiment.
Yes, to experiment. It is actually not normal because a good proportion of children actually do not. So if you begin to tell them how, when you were younger, you also tried, and then I say, so it's okay. Yeah, dad also tried. And yes, I will try, and then I will also just stop the way you stopped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, also as a parent, when it comes to picking the right time and place, classic example is, let's say you have found that your child is using, or you find them using, you blow up there and start, criticizing them, calling them names without really considering the environment that you are in. When it comes to picking a place and a time for these conversations, how much do those contribute to having a fruitful conversation with your child?
Now, the me time for the child, irrespective of what they have done, because you cannot just talk to them nicely when they are bringing in good grades and so on. Yeah. When they also have problems, you should also be able to create time. Because you see, if you criticize them in the presence of other people, you actually lower their self-esteem, and you are not even boosting their confidence. You need to boost their confidence that, yes, I have made a mistake and I have come. We can talk about it. What are some of the things that happened? How did probably my friends, my friends may have said, can you come, we study together? And in their house, there's probably even alcohol and the parents are not there. Then they use and they find themselves in this situation. First of all, you need to let them sober up. And then after that, that is where the staying calm comes in, so that now you address the issue as it were.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't just have these conversations anywhere. They might not be as productive because maybe your child might not be comfortable in that certain environment or even sober to have that conversation.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to after having this or even when you're having these conversations with your children, you need to sort of build them to a point to which they can be able to say no even in your absence. So building these refusal skills for your child for future purposes, how do you go about that to ensure that, you know what, akisema hii, they'll always be safe, to have sort of a fallback statement?
I know even as NACADA, for a long time we campaigned say no to drugs. Or say no to alcohol and drugs. But you see, it actually doesn't give the skills.
Yes.
So now we talk about the actual skills, because you need to help them have, their basket of alternatives. So that is why we are saying that begin to do these things early, so that they, small things, including even shopping, doing their own shopping for school, let them make decisions. Let them not just go to the supermarket and pick things the way they want without thinking that there's usually a cost at the end of it. Let them come up with a list, and then let them know that there are those things that they need, and probably some of the things that they just want, which, can be removed from there, so that they begin to learn that there are consequences. So that now, if they find themselves, because they'll still want to be with their peers. Yeah, they'll still want to be their peers, and probably they didn't know that this somebody is getting into drug. You are saying, you know what, my mother does not approve. Yeah, that's a skill. Just being able to give the factual information that my mother does not approve. Yeah,
a safe statement that can protect them, and it's them saying no.
Yes, my mother does not approve. Or even the fact that, you know what, I know that I have only one brain. And because there's no substitute, I would want to keep my brain.
Okay.
They're able to tell that. But if they find themselves in a situation, you can even have a signal. They've gone out with their friends and say, oh, Mom, is Uncle Dan home? All right. You have already agreed with your child that if they say that,
come get me.
It means come and get me.
Yes.
Yeah. So you see, you're already giving them alternatives that they can use.
All right.
So on the one hand, they can outrightly tell others about the fact that I do not use drugs because I have only one brain and I want to respect my brain. You know, I like being in control. And if I use drugs, I'm going to lose control. My mother does not approve. Oh, no, you know, my father will kill me. You know, all those things that they can say that makes the other say, okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. But also, those are the ones, you know, they could even, if they have enough knowledge, they could also tell them about, oh, you know what? You know, we learned that cannabis actually affects your memory. Yeah. And I don't want to lose my memory. So they can also have that opportunity to also educate the others.
All right.
Yeah.
So get to have this conversation. If it means having a safe word with your child, that they can always say, you can't bail them out, get to have it and establish it with your child. Build on their refusal skills. The more, you know, we always talk about building social skills, financial skills. What about those refusal skills for when they are in situations they need to say no, but they don't know how to? Now, as we bring the conversation to a close, you had mentioned that, you know, as parents, we also tend to leave some of these vital conversations to the school. And the school also expects you as a parent to start these conversations. When it comes to understanding that this is a two-way street between parents and teachers, and we all need to work together to just make sure that the message is communicated and communicated properly to the child.
Yeah, you know, schools have a totally different function, and that has to do with delivering a curriculum. Academics, yeah. That is why right now parents are concerned, oh, you know, the schools have been extended, the holidays has been extended to June. They're wondering, oh, so will my child do exams this year? Will they postpone and so on? So you see, the school's core business is actually issues of curriculum. And of course, right now in the competency-based curriculum, even as NACADA, we have infused the drug education into the competency-based curriculum. So it means that the school will be doing their part in terms of imparting even skills. And part of the things that are promoted is also life skills education so that they learn the skills at school. But remember that your child, and from the research that I've mentioned before, 48.5% of children initiate drugs at home. That's why we are having this conversation, because the home environment is no longer protective. So the school will reinforce what is happening at home. If your child is using alcohol or drugs at home and they carry it to school, because those are other things that happen. So schools have to do inspections, and children come up with all this manner of concealing the substances to get into the school. It still falls back to the parent. Because remember, as a parent, you probably have 1 or 2 children. I'm not sure how many of us still have 10 children. Yeah. But at school, in a classroom, there are already 50, 70, 80. And so the teacher is probably likely to see changes in performance and bring it to your attention. And you'll remember, as a parent, you'll be very defensive. Not my child. Yes.
Now, in order to not get so defensive as parents, the importance of setting clear expectations. Let your child know whether you disapprove or approve, so that, you know, this sort of guides their interaction with substance and other alcohol and other substances. Communicating your expectations very clearly with your child. How far does that help in this conversation?
It is, because you see, remember, you matter. You matter to your child. So whatever you approve or disapprove is something, you know, they always look up to you.
Yes.
Even when they look like they are looking up to celebrities, maybe the way they dress, they are trying to reflect some other celebrity. The bottom line is you still matter to them.
Okay.
So when you are very clear about these expectations that we do not approve of alcohol use or tobacco or drugs, then they know clearly. And they don't expect to see it at home.
Yes.
Because
so
again,
don't say one thing and do the other.
You can't be drinking at home and say how
alcohol is bad.
Alcohol is bad. You know, what you're doing is what counts more than what you're saying. Yeah. So it's you need to be very consistent.
Okay.
Because if you're consistent, then the child also knows that this is not. Yeah. But when they fall into trouble, because peer influence still comes in. And also remember that the personality of the child also contributes to this.
Yes.
There are some personalities that predispose children to try to use drugs, like sensation seekers, you know, the ones who say, you see those ones who will be trying to move into traffic on those roller skates?
Yes.
Yes. You know, those ones are more of sensation seekers.
All right.
So you see there are certain characteristics that predispose them. But you need to be very clear. And, and that means you are also aware of the kind of child that you have.
Okay.
And therefore you are supporting them, and you know that there are certain things that will predispose them to drug use, and therefore you help. And should they require even psychiatric help, or you need to see a psychologist, then you also start early.
Start early.
Yeah.
Again, the main thing is to start early, because they say samaki mkunje angali mbichi. When you try to force behavioral changes when they're a bit too old, it might be near impossible. So try and have these conversations with your child as early as possible. Of course, making them age appropriate in a way that they can understand. Don't tell a 2-year-old alcohol will bring you liver damages. They don't understand that. Just have a conversation, have a straightforward statement that your 2-year-old might be able to understand, your 7-year-old, your 13-year-old, your 18-year-old. Have age-appropriate conversations with your child and build on them. Don't just have them one-off. No. Have these conversations often, and ultimately you will see the fruit much later when they are able to make independent decisions that are not harmful to them, but rather build on who they are. That brings us to a close of this segment. Remember, we've been talking about positive parenting, and today we were highlighting those, initiating the parent-child conversations around alcohol and substance abuse. And helping us with this discussion, we have been speaking with Susan Maua, who is the acting manager in charge of public education and advocacy working with NACADA. Thank you so much, Susan. We always appreciate your time. All right, so we do have more coming up in a bit, but of course now to switch on over to the other side of things. Doreen.
Right, and that was a very beautiful discussion there, Jane, on matters drugs and substance abuse with our guest. But at 7 minutes to the top of the hour, it is a time for our segment Inside Parliament, where we run through the House business transactions the week that was. And this is for both houses, both the National Assembly as well as the Senate. And so we begin with the order paper of the week that was. Like I mentioned, of course, we run through this is for both houses, both the National Assembly as well as the Senate. So we begin with the order paper. This, in essence, means this is what had been set for the House to deliberate on the week that was. So that the 12th Parliament, 4th session, the Senate supplementary order paper, Tuesday, April 21st, 2020 at 2:30 p.m. So let's just look at some of those items that had been set for the House to deliberate on the week that was. The first one was reduction of publication period for the pandemic response and management bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2020, where the passage of Standing Order 134, the Senate resolves to reduce the publication period of the pandemic response and management bill. There was also the reduction of publication period for the county allocation of revenue bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2020, and that the passage to Standing Order 134, the Senate resolved to reduce that publication period of the county allocation of the revenue bill, just like it was mentioned there in the header. There was also the Community Health Service Bill, Senate Bill number 5 of 2020. Moving on. There was also, of course, that was in regards to matters to do with the Senate. So let's just see the National Assembly morning sitting. Remember, there are two sittings. There's the morning there's a morning sitting. There's the evening sitting. So let's begin with the National Assembly order of business morning sitting, and the limitation of debate where the pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 97-1 and notwithstanding the resolution of the House of February 18th, 2020, each speech in any debate during the sittings of the House on Wednesday, April 22nd, April 22nd, April 22nd, Wednesday, April 29th, and Wednesday, May 6, 2020, shall be limited as follows: a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes, with not more than 15 minutes for the mover in moving, and 5 minutes in replying, and maximum of 5 minutes for any other member speaking, and that priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of majority party, the leader of minority party, and chairperson of the relevant committee in that order. Of course, this just stipulates the number of minutes that a member has to present their motions. There was also the Tax Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly, Bill number 3 of 2020. This was also part of what was to be discussed by the members the week that is the National Assembly. There was also the consideration of nominees for appointment to the Teachers of Service Commission. But before I continue unpacking more of what is there in regards to the nominees of appointment to the Teacher Service Commission, let's look at the Tax Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly, and what the members had to say in regards to this issue of Tax Amendment Bill 2020. Take a look.
The bill seeks to amend the income tax to, among other things, reduce the individual top tax rates and residents' corporate tax rate. What does it do? One, for the individual, this will increase the disposable income for the individuals and in turn enhance consumption.
The only sector which is still growing despite the COVID, Mr. Speaker, is the general agriculture, Mr. Speaker, and therefore we have saved fertilizer from being taxed and all agricultural implements and pesticides, which was going to go higher if we could have agreed with this proposal.
There are things which we must agree, that bread must be zero rated. You cannot put bread and chocolate on the same side, because how many Kenyans actually consume chocolate?
I want to say that it may be suitable that because we are employed in government like those many others whose jobs are secured in this situation, we can see benefit in reducing something like income tax from 30 to 25. It is not something that is going to be helpful because the government still needs money.
Is to help alleviate the negative impact of the pandemic by enhancing the disposable income, especially for the workers, and also to protect businesses. So the main reason for this are two. Number one is to put money into the pockets of Kenyans, and number two, to protect the businesses and to protect jobs.
In regards to this matters to do with tax amendment bill, remember that now some of the tax laws that were to be amended included the VAT dropping from 16 to 14%, Kenyans earning 24,000 and below to get 100% tax relief, as well as pay to be reduced from 30 to 25%, meaning employees getting a reprieve of about 5%, which was passed by the House the week that was. But moving on, still on matters that some of the issues that were deliberated by the House again last week, also there's the consideration of nominees for appointment to the Teachers Service Commission, where that, taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research in its report on the vetting of nominees for appointment to the Teachers Service Commission, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, April 14th, 2020, cognizant of the provisions of the Article 252B and the 259(11) of the Constitution, and pursuant to the provisions of the section of the Teachers Service Commission Act 2012, this House rejects the appointment of the following persons as members of the Teachers Service Commission. So these two names were the appointees, and these were Mr. Mbage Njuga Nganga and Ms. Leila Abdi Ali. Also to note, resumption of debate interrupted on Tuesday, April 14, 2020. But just take a look at what some of the members had to say in regards to this appointment of these two nominees. Listen in.
In the entire report, there was nowhere where there was an adverse remarks on the nominees. Mr. Speaker, only the last paragraph is where they said they reject. Otherwise, there is nothing adversely mentioned about the nominees.
The qualifications of the two members that the committee is asking us to reject are in areas that I think would be complementary to the Teacher Service Commission. They are lawyers, and we know that they face a lot of legal battles, and there's also financial expertise. And we know that mismanagement of financial resources in this country has led to a collapse of quite a number of organizations.
I have to oppose this report also, absolutely. Because we cannot have a committee introduce parameters that are not known in law for purposes of defeating candidates who have been nominated for specific jobs.
Is he knowledgeable, according to the Teachers Service Act, on issues that concern the Teacher Service Commission? This particular candidate was unable to show that he was very so. And lastly, on Honorable Leila, she was unable to prove that she has been serving for the last 10 years and has that prerequisite experience as one who has been working in government.
Let us not look at things in a very narrow perspective. These are Kenyans who are going to help this country move forward. And the problem we have with this committee, Mr. Speaker of Education, just as a whip, we have filled that committee with unionists, Mr. Speaker. There are around 8 of them, and they think the only person who qualifies to be a TSC commissioner is a former teacher.
Clearly looks like it was a heated debate by the members of the House there in regards to this issue of the appointment of these two nominees. But also to note is that the leader of Majority, Aden Duale, issued a notice of motion on the same issue of the appointment of these two nominees. So we'll see how that unpacks probably this week, as they will be probably discussing on that same issue. But now we want to move on to other matters still in regards to what was put forward in the House the week that was, and this is the motion tracker as at Tuesday, 21st April 2020. So again, the week that was, this in regards to some of the issues that were proposed, better still, by members of the House last week. And so we begin with the person to Standing Orders 184 and 189.3. The Senate approves the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who, pursuant to Standing Order 1841, shall be the chairperson of the committee, the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. So let me just run through some of those names. This includes Senator Fatuma Dulo, Senator Cleophas Malala, Senator Dalrins Kwamboka, Senator Paul Gihiomo Mwangi, and of course, there are also a number of other senators there. But that specific motion was, the notice of that motion was issued on Thursday, 13th February 2020. It was sponsored by Senator of Majority Leader, that is Aden Duale, seconded by Minority Leader. The effects does not, or if it affects the county or does not affect the county, well, just turns out that it does not affect the counties. The date debated and concluded of that specific motion was still on the same day, which is 13th February 2020, and it was adopted without amendments again on the same day, 13th February 2020. So moving on to another motion, that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation on its inquiry into projects undertaken by the Kenya Maritime Authority, Kenya Ferry Services, and the National Social Security Fund, NSSF, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 21st November 2019. So that motion was given on Tuesday, 18th February 2020. It was sponsored by the chairperson, SC, Roads and Transportation, seconded by Senator Judith Pareno. Again, it also does not affect the counties. The same motion was debated and concluded on 25th February 2020, which is different from the day in which it was issued, or the notice of motion, and it was also adopted without amendment on Tuesday, 25th February 2020. Still on the same day at which it was debated, it was also the same day in which the motion was adopted without any amendments. We now move to another thing, and this is the bill tracker. Again, the bill tracker as at Tuesday, 21st April 2020. So we look at some of the bills that were before the House on this specific day. Again, the week that was. The first bill is the Election Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 3 of 2017. The sponsor of that bill was Senator Fatuma Dulo. The Gazette number of the bill was 149. The date of publication of the bill, remember we're looking at the Election Laws Amendment Bill. The date of the publication of the bill was 28 September 2017. Its maturity date was the same date of publication, which still is at 28, which was on 28 September 2017. Its first reading was still the same date, 28 September 2017. So the committee referred to on the same bill, that is the Committee on the Election Laws Amendment Bill. There was no second reading of that specific bill. There was also no third reading, but the remarks on the same bill, still on the Election Laws Amendment Bill, number 3 of 2017, the remarks of the publication period reduced from 14 days to 1 day pursuant to Standing Order 134. So moving on again, the Election Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 39 of 2017. Remember, the first one was the Senate bill. The second one is now the National Assembly Bill number 39 of 2017. The sponsor of that bill was the Senate Majority Leader again, Adan Duale. The Gazette number was 148. The date of publication for that specific bill was on 27 September 2017. Its maturity date was still the same date of its publication, which again was still on 27 September 2017. Its first reading was on 11th October 2017 still. So the committee referred to was the Committee of the Election Laws Amendment Bill. We are still looking at the Election Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly number 39 of 2017. That is the bill we are looking at. And now the second reading of that bill, remember the first reading took place on the 11th October 2017 of the same bill. The second reading took place on the same date on 11th October 2017, and it was passed. The third reading took place on 12th October 2017, and again, it was passed. So the remarks of that bill was the bill was passed by the Senate without amendment. Without amendment referred to the National Assembly. The bill deemed to have been assented to by operations of the law pursuant to Article 115.6, Act gazetted on 2nd November 2017. So that is the bill tracker as at Tuesday, 21st April 2020, which was last week on Tuesday. So, of course, that has been the motion tracker as well as the bill tracker. We now want to move to the order paper, National Assembly. Let me just run through or look at what the members had been set to discuss on that specific day. Now, this is as at Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020, again, which was the week that was also. So this is just what the members had been set to deliberate on that week. So there was the amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2020, that the Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2020 be now considered. There was also Committee of the Whole House, whereby consideration of the Senate amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 3 of 2020. There was also the issue of tax laws, whereby the tax laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 8 of 2020. But before we continue unpacking more of what had been said for the House, especially in regards to the tax laws, let's just listen in to what members had to say in regards to this issue of Division of Revenue Bill. Take a look.
Division of Revenue Bill discusses the issue of vertical allocation of resources. And in this case, Honorable Speaker, we are not having issues in terms of what the national government gets and what the county governments get. The issue is at our level where we are saying, how much does this particular county get in terms of allocation? And that's what we call the horizontal allocation of resources.
We can give it a blind eye in this pandemic of COVID-19, but going forward into the future, that the Assembly must discharge their role of appropriating those finances. It is after they have approved the budget of the Nairobi City County, that's when those amount of money will now be taken to where those functions are.
When laws are made, they're not made with the persons who hold the office in mind, but it is a system that needs to work. I think it's time that the governor for Nairobi, I'm even surprised that he's still governor, the governor for Nairobi learns to operate in accordance not only with the law, but what is in the public interest.
We have come up with a new amorphous body, the Nairobi Metropolitan, Mr. Speaker, which we do not even understand its framework of operation. It becomes very dangerous, Mr. Speaker, just to transfer the funds without a proper framework.
The governor created this problem. He can now not hold back to the monies, and this assembly must do only one thing: disagree with them and let the other parts take its natural course. I disagree.
Mr. Speaker, if you go around this city, slums are sprouting in the middle of suburbs. People, you are no longer safe. Rubbish is all over the place. And then we are saying that we want to leave this again for another round of politics. Let us be serious. We can only deal with one problem at a time. We cannot be dealing with COVID as a problem and Sonko as another problem. President Uhuru Kenyatta, I want to support Senate, exercise that veto power that I don't normally support you on.
All right, so that's what members had to say in regards to the issue of division of revenue. But also there was another issue, if I may say, and this is in regards to applauding, or better still, clapping for the persons that are on the front line in helping us fight against this pandemic. Of course, this includes members of the essential services as well as the health workers, who have really been on the front line in helping us fight against COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, this move had been said by one of the members of the House that every Wednesday they need to be applauding or clapping for this essential service member. But just listening to what was said.
The nation has been subjected to a campaign by the Editors Guild in Kenya, where they have a Sasita campaign, where we seek to recognize all the caregivers, the doctors, indeed our security personnel who have stood on the front line of this COVID-19 issue.
For how many minutes?
Members of the House clapping for those people giving essential services, among them including the health workers who are on the front line in helping us fight against this pandemic. But we now want to run through this week what the House is set to deliberate on this week. The order paper Senate this coming week, which is on April 28th, 2020. This Tuesday, the sitting will be at 2:30 p.m. And among the issues include the county allocation of revenue bills. So it looks like matters to do with revenue bills still continues. Senate Bills number 7 of 2020. There's also the issue of the Fisheries Management and Development Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2019. There's also the Committee of the Whole, the County Allocation of Revenue Bill, Senate Bills number 7 of 2020. Committee of the Whole consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the Office of the County Attorney. To the Office of the County Attorney Bill, Senate Bill number 3 of 2018. Considerations of the National Assembly amendments to the Petition to County Assemblies Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2018. The Pandemic Response and Management Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2020. This is just what has been set for the House to discuss this coming, or to deliberate on this coming week. And again, matters to do with coronavirus still coming up in what they are set to discuss this coming week, which is on April 28th, this Tuesday, April 28th, 2020. Now, let's run through the National Assembly, the order paper, National Assembly. Again, this is what has been set for the National Assembly to deliberate on April 29th, 2020, the morning sitting which will be beginning at 10 a.m. That will be on Wednesday. Again, that is this coming week. So among those issues include the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2020. There's also the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2020, the Small Claims Court Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 4 of 2020. That will be happening in the second reading. The other one will be happening in the first reading. Still on the second reading, there will also be the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2020. The evening sitting, some of the issues set for the House to deliberate on this coming week for the evening sitting will include the Committee of the Whole House, the Supplementary Appropriation Bill 2020, National Assembly Bill, the Small Claims Court Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 4 of 2020, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2020, other measures to address the effects of COVID-19 pandemic that, aware that the World Health Organization declared the coronavirus disease 2019 or COVID-2019 a global health pandemic, and that the pandemic has led to unprecedented global health crisis. So these are some of the key issues that the House is set to deliberate on this coming week, both the National Assembly as well as the Senate. The Senate sitting, which will be happening on Tuesday, this coming week on 28th, and the National Assembly, which will be happening on Wednesday on 29th. So that brings us close to our segment Inside Parliament, but there's still plenty more after this break, so stay with us.
This Monday on KBC Channel 1.
Haifai. Vile mama Dama anafanya haifai hata kidogo. Si mtoto wake peke yake anaumia tangu huyo apate accident.
You seriously need to grow up. Dama is fighting for her life, and all you can think about is yourself and all the attention that you need.
My baby. I want to see my baby.
No. It's better if you don't see him.
But why not? Oh, Monte Cristo, bring him to me. I want to hold him.
Once, twice, 3 times later. You are my shining star.
Next on.
Nitachukua vyote hapa sasa hivi.
Hapana baba, tafadhali.
Kaka ndo binti yangu pamoja na fedha zangu.
Unamaanisha nini? Mjomba, sijakuelewa.
Hata kujifanya mjinga. Inajulikana wazi kwamba wazazi wako wana pesa nyingi sana. Mbona unamdanganya binti yangu kuwekeza mashine yako?
Nimepata. Umeona? Jamani, nini tena hiki jamani? Yaani mwaka mzima ndio umepata haka. Kwani unasema kwa mwaka mzima? Ni 500,000.
Gawang nataka kujua amefanya nini, anakupa mshahara kiasi gani, pesa hizi hazikutoshi.
Sitaenda nyumbani, nitalala hapa. Na nimefukuzwa na baba.
On the next episode of Elena's Ghost.
But man, we have to call somebody.
Shh, you be quiet. I asked you to take care of my son and mother, but it's clear to me that you are useless. Shh, would you please shut up?
Madam, your son was here at the house looking for Milady. I had to kick him out.
You don't have the right.
Listen, this isn't about having rights. It's only about emotions.
I need to ask a big favor, but it's something rather confidential. I need to test someone's DNA, and I think you may be able to help me.
Next on Corner.
Dama's mother wants nothing to do with me or anyone from the gym. She kicked me out.
Give me some credit.
I never said you were my suspect.
Well, you definitely hinted at it. When I leak something, I go to the mainstream media, not some small, struggling tabloid.
Gym kuna pressure mob sana. Na lazima mimi ndo nimekishwa kila mtu akupoa.
So that's why you're providing sanctuary to your wounded victims, eh?
What?
Nilipata Julia kwa keja yako leo asubuhi.
So?
Make it rain. I want him alive.
Thank you for keeping it. Good morning, Kenya. Now, to continue with the day's discussion, this is in regards to the COVID-19 responses that we have been witnessing in the recent past from different parts of the community, you know, from CSR projects to individual organizations going all out in an effort to help bring down the effects of this pandemic that is COVID-19. And over the weekend, we did see His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta acknowledge and express his gratitude to some parts of the community, of course not all, but some members of the community who are at the forefront doing some of this, or rather responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and helping the community at large. Let's have a listen and a look before we get into this conversation.
I also want at this point to specially recognize and thank the very, very many active community groups that are responding to the needs of their fellow citizens. I want to express my thanks to members of Shining Hope communities, the Sikh and Hindu communities, the Green Card, Mtaani, Ghetto Classics, Torch Women, Women in Business.
All right, so those were just some of the individual organizations that were mentioned and, you know, applauded. And of course, His Excellency did extend his gratitude to these organizations for what they are doing in response to mitigating the effects of COVID-19. And joining us right now for a very candid discussion, we have with us Mary Muthoni, who is the chair of Women in Business, one of the organizations that was recognized, as well as Kamal Gupta, who is the chair of the Hindu Council of Kenya. Welcome, lady and gent. All right, so we just want to have a conversation around what, efforts they have been making and what they have been doing with their communities to help shield Kenyans during this time. And let me start with you, Mary Muthoni. Maybe we could start by helping us and our viewer better understand what Women in Business Kenya is all about. All right, as we get to handle a few issues here and there, remember, Women in Business is one of the organizations that was acknowledged and applauded by His Excellency this past weekend for efforts when it comes to COVID-19 response. And of course, the Sikh and Hindu communities have also been recognized. And we have also with us Kamal Gupta, who is the chair of the Hindu Council of Kenya. He also doubles as he actually wears many other hats, but today, for the purposes of this conversation, we are going to be focusing on the Hindu Council of Kenya. And maybe we could start just right there. Mary, I had actually posed the question to you. Maybe you could start by telling us, and of course for the benefit of our viewer, what Women in Business is all about.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. First and foremost, Women in Business is a platform. It's a Kenyan platform for women who are across the ranging from MSME, that is the micro, small enterprises, to small and medium enterprises, all through to the corporate. Some of our key pillars that really guide us is finding financial solutions for the women, ensuring that we get markets for the women, and mentorship. Not forgetting networking and partnerships, and of course, policy and advocacy. Women in Business stretches to about 1.2 million members across in all the counties, and we've got 800 who are active in trade and any business activities. So to speak, with of SMEs that we have in the country, most of them women. About 16 million are SMEs in this country, and part of that, most of them are women and the youth. And if you look at what is happening right now during COVID-19, the most likely people affected, not infected, to get affected could be the women. And I don't know if you'll allow me to go and explain the reason as to why. Is because if you look at the women in general who are in the healthcare, the sick, taking care of in the hospitals, and the nurses are women. Which percentage are women? So in one way or another, even if they are not infected, they are getting affected. They may be empathetically when they see what is happening to their communities, and also taking care of their loved ones.
Okay.
Number two, right now, you realize that women are also very much affected. Women are take the responsibility of taking care of their families, taking care of their children, the young ones. They don't go to school, and normally when children go to school, maybe they can go to do our businesses. But right now, they are at home.
Yeah.
So we are the teacher, we are the mother, we are everybody else. Across the world, number three, across the world, you realize that women, a lot of charitable work, or if you compare the payments for women in the job places, that of men, most of the women are likely to give a hand vis-a-vis the other gender, or they're likely to take a lower pay or half pay than the other gender. So most of these women are in the informal settlements.
Mm-hmm.
So you can figure out that during this COVID-19, they are more likely to get affected
Yeah.
Because even the
All right, we are having some audio issues right there, but we'll be getting back to that point with Mary Muthoni. Remember, she is the chair of Women in Business. But let me come to you, Mr. Kamal Gupta. Remember, he is the chair of the Hindu Council of Kenya. And for the benefit of our viewers, once again, maybe you could start by letting us understand what the Hindu Council of Kenya is all about. All right, so we'll be sorting that out in a bit. Do stay with us. Remember, this is all about efforts that are being made by communities to just sort of respond and mitigate the effects that we have been seeing as a people when it comes to the consequences that we are suffering from as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, just echoing what Mary was saying, Women in Business is an organization that is all about women who rank from different parts of the country, different parts of the economy, bringing them together and just empowering them and letting them know that, you can do whatever you set your mind to. And of course, also highlighting the fact that, a lot of women have been heavily affected as a result of this pandemic. So right now we want to get back to the conversation with Mr. Kamal Gupta, the chair of the Hindu Council of Kenya. And you could as well just start by letting us know, understand rather, what the Hindu Council of Kenya is all about.
Good fellow Kenyans, first and foremost, I wish to appreciate and admire President Uhuru Kenyatta, who admire and appreciate all the institutions that are trying to do a bit to fight against.
All right, don't worry about that. It happens, technical hitches here and there, but we are here to just make sure we are able to have these conversations and let you know what other people are out there just doing, all in an effort to help cushion those who are not able to, cushion or protect themselves of the vulnerable during this time that we are fighting this COVID-19 pandemic. Remember, these two entities, that is Women in Business and, of course, the Hindu Council of Kenya, were part of the communities that were applauded by His Excellency during his state address on Saturday, of course, giving an update on the COVID-19 pandemic so far, as well as issuing a raft of other measures that have been employed to further help mitigate the consequences and effects of COVID-19. And of course, it means a lot, that the fact that His Excellency is actually just, not about issuing all these limitations or other regulations and rules that are being put in place, but also acknowledging what the rest of the community is doing, all in an effort to bring down or rather flatten the curve when it comes to the response to COVID-19. So we are back with our guests, and just to get back to what Mr. Kamal was saying.
Good morning, fellow Kenyans. Through KBC, I'm very delighted to be at this show. I wish to admire and appreciate His Excellency, our President, Uhuru Kenyatta, who really not only given us extra energy to continue doing what we are doing in terms of support and service to the Wananchi, but at the same time, he is making a good impact to create a reference also. This is something where we all get together and bring a lot for our fellow Kenyans. I wish to introduce Hindu Council. My name is Kamal Gupta. I'm the National Chairman of Hindu Council of Kenya. Hindu Council of Kenya is an umbrella body for all the Hindu institutions, over 150 across country. And we have 5 branches across the country in Kisumu, Eldoret, Nakuru, Mombasa, and Mount Kenya. So all the branches are taking care, not only the people of the community, but at the same time ensuring that whatever bit we could extend to our brothers and sisters in the best possible way, we are trying our best. And I'm very delighted and pleased to inform you that all my branches are trying to support through the government machineries to reach to the real needy in best possible way, whether the local government or local authorities, wherever they need, they come together, and Hindu Council team at every level would try to match the synergy and strength. When I mention about 150 member institutions, I'm talking about all the temples, all the communities spread across the country. And as you all know, Hindu community is the 44th tribe in Kenya, and we are part and parcel in all situations. And this is the situation where all of us together fight against COVID-19. And that is the mission what Hindu Council took together with the government and the government directives, work towards fight against COVID-19.
All right, and maybe you could tell us a bit about, some of the projects that as a community, as the Hindu Council of Kenya, you had embarked on just to help, ease the burden for the rest of the members in the community as we try to fight COVID-19.
Definitely, yes. As I mentioned that the community is spread all over the country, and every nook and corner, every member is trying to fulfill the responsibility and duties what we have to fight against. And that is how we try to not only collaborate with the government structure and machinery to help the people, those are needy, whether in the form of distributing food material, even supporting with water tanks, sanitizers, and all those things. Even very Saturday, last Saturday, we launched a program where 100,000 masks were going to be distributed all over the country through the structure. And we appreciate the committee we've been formed by the president. We are always been collaborating with all the governmental structure so that we don't leave even a single one who really need, and wherever our reach could be to extend the support to our people.
All right. Now, when it comes to these projects that you have embarked on, issuing the masks, you said 100,000 are set to go out, and of course, so many other projects that are all in line with just helping bring down this curve. What are some of the challenges that, as a council, you have been encountering during this time that we're fighting COVID-19?
A very good question. The reason is that this is not a general distribution, because here the sensitivity and maybe is something where everyone has to be protected and prevented. And at the same time, people are so worried and concerned that they wanted to have a right way to make a structure of distribution. So this is something which we as a council, as a community, are very careful, and we are keeping the social distancing, we are keeping all those parameters which have been guided and derived by the Ministry of Health to follow in a very disciplined way. And that's the reason we feel like that is the challenge which we wanted to encounter together with the government bodies that to distribute. But definitely, as I told, that there are various places where we have to reach in all possible ways. We distributed water tanks, we distributed very recently even food material to the homes, old age homes and children homes, and there are places where they really need attention. And some of the places, they don't have access to reach out and really drive. So as a council, as a community, we always been careful to take this distribution through the right channel so that we don't miss anyone, but at the same time, it reaches to the right perspective and people. Here, at the same time, the collection and maybe consolidation is something where we are working very hard so that we make a good impact to our people and they could get. And I'm very pleased to tell you that whole the community are very open and very much available throughout, and all my member institutions, all my temples and other bodies, those are part of Hindu Council. They are very, very supportive to really run through this particular objective, which is fight against COVID-19.
All right, and maybe at this point you'd just like to speak when it comes to community-led interventions. You have mentioned, there are some areas that are a bit hard to get to, and therefore just ensuring that the right beneficiaries are reached might be a bit of a challenge. So how then do we best ensure that community-led initiatives and interventions are more effective as we move forward with this fight against COVID-19?
That's the way how we have chosen that to use the government structure to reach to the people, and really the places where it is tough to, we definitely always run through our programs and projects together with the government bodies. Those are actually very much on the ground, and we are also collaborating with churches and mosques to distribute our contribution, and really this is how the way where we can really make the impact and really reach to the right people who are actually worried and looking for. This pandemic is really a kind of situation, creating a situation where we all understand that it's looking like when the end will come. But we all pray also together that we swiftly come out with this situation. And as I mentioned, that I admire Kenyan government took the right initiatives and at the right time to fight against COVID. And we as a community are totally aligned and hand in hand to take the mission all together.
All right. And also when it comes to involving the community in just making sure that we are sending out the right information when it comes to anything to do with COVID-19, maybe you could start by letting us know, what the Hindu community has been doing to ensure that the rest of the communities understand and get the right information about COVID-19, and what more we need to do while at it.
In fact, we within the community, we have a structure of communication, and as I told you, we have 150 institutions. Further, each institution have a different set of people and number of people. So we have a structured way to communicate to each and every member of the community. And since the starting point when our president come out and asked for this pandemic, we as a community start addressing to our members and sensitize the members towards the challenge of this particular calamity, and we really urge each one of them that to come forward and support. There are the ways how we reach to our members through our social media platform, through our communication network. That's how we start urging that there are various ways they can connect with. So Hindu Council took that 4 different ways of initiatives that to consolidate that initiative of support to the people, outcome, and then accordingly they can participate and engage more and more to help. We also collaborate with various hospitals to support them, to support the frontline workers where they are getting food support from council and council member institutions. Every day we are serving them hot meals so that they feel motivated, and we are also trying to help them in terms of providing several PPEs so that at least whatever bit we could do, we could extend. We have certainly we have a few limitations also, but this is the time when we have to really fight against all those negatives and come out with total strength. That is the reason why I urge to each and every member of my community, all the member institutions, temples, and all the institutions that to come forward and support to fight all together. But at the same time, I always unite other community members also that please, this is the time, whatever you can do to support, please do, because that is where we can make the change. That is where we can live together and the harmony would come forward.
Yeah, and speaking about, just coming together, working together, and in moving forward in harmony, looking at, some very important partnerships that, need to be worked on. And let's just start, with the county governments. What more do you think they can do to just help even those who are in the front line, giving out essential services, just be better at doing what they're doing in terms of delivery? Looking at all these relevant partnerships, what role can each one play to contribute to the entire whole?
Yeah, all my branches on the county level or the regional level, they are collaborating with the various counties and governments, local governments, and ensuring that wherever we can make a catalyst, work of as a catalyst Hindu community to motivate and to instigate. Like I'm putting an example of my Kisumu branch, where the team of Hindu Council really continue even making the cleanliness on the roads and the places where the most optimized position of getting virus and all. So they are making the activity of cleaning the roads and cleaning the places where it is needed. At the same time, when I'm talking about my Eldoret branch, they distributed tanks and support together with the government, local government, and to participate in various acts where we can get engaged and we can support in big way. I'm talking about my Nakuru branch, where there is a collaboration among other communities also, not only limiting to Hindu community, but to come forward and grip the hand of the others and strengthen and move it further. Mombasa branch is continuing working with the government, local government, and participating in various fields. Very recently, they find that at one of the hospital where there is a need of water, we came forward and we supported to this borehole. And that is how, the small way or whatever possible, as a community at large, we are consolidating and we are trying our best.
All right. Now, as we draw the conversation to a close, we have been witnessing cases of some Kenyans still going against the rules and regulations that have been put in place, some trying to just, find a loophole to take advantage of during this time. What would be your message to some of these people who are just going against the grain when it comes to bringing down the effects of COVID-19?
Yeah, in fact, I take it this way, that most important element to fight against COVID is you yourself. Means as an individual, we have to be disciplined. We have to really work, and because understanding is very much there. I can't say that people are ignorant and they don't have the understanding of the basics. So I can say that first and foremost is you yourself who will make a real reason and how to make a fight against COVID. And then social distancing is the break the chain, is something which is very, very important.
All right, we seem to have lost Mr. Kamal's audio right there, but this is just in regards to, what more we need to do to stop going against the rules that are being put in place to help prevent the further spread of COVID-19. We will be getting back with him in a bit to just get to understand, from his point of view, of course, representing the Hindu Council of Kenya right there. I believe we are back with Mr. Kamal.
Sorry, there was some interruption. But as I mentioned to you that there are few basic elements which we continue sharing with our people. And very recently, the educational material which have been distributed all over various places, like with the help of Shingishu County, our Eldoret branch played a very important role to distribute in the local dialect, local language, the material.
All right. All right. We'll be getting back to that to get his closing remarks in regards to that. But remember, we all have a role to play when it comes to helping flatten the curve here in Kenya. Remember, His Excellency did say we will escalate or de-escalate the situation as the situation continues to unwrap. And of course, this is all dependent with how we as a people carry ourselves. Remember, this virus does not move itself. We are the ones who get to move it. So that is Mr. Kamal Gupta, the chair of the Hindu Council of Kenya. But before we get to wrap that conversation, maybe Mr. Kamal, you could just, your word of advice to the public when it comes to observing some of these regulations, and also how our viewers can get in touch when, in regards to donating and helping to the cause.
Yes, as I mentioned to you, that there are ways how we can prevent, and we have already talked about social distancing, discipline yourself, whether it is hygiene, cleaning, and all those aspects. I'm sure that there are very many ways to address all these aspects, and I'm very happy that with various ways we managed to educate and sensitize our people in a very good way. But moreover, it is important to follow in the discipline, and that discipline will make us prevented and protected with this particular situation, and we can definitely find a win over COVID very, very soon, and if we follow all these discipline. But finally, on the specific particular urge, the way which I have done in past also, and I continue asking to my communities, my people, that wherever, whosoever is in a position to strengthen and support this initiative of supporting our people, those are actually really in need. This is the time. Please come forward. Don't wait. If we are all together, if we are strengthening this initiative, we can definitely come out with this stage very, very fast, because this is not permanent, and this can only be overcome when we are all together and we understand. I wish to conclude with a small Hindu prayer, if please allow me, that says that Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kashyetu Bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. I also wish to tell you the meaning of this prayer.
Yes, please.
May all become happy. May none fall ill. May all see auspicious everywhere. May none ever feel sorrow. Om, peace, peace, peace. So we all pray for our great nation, for our president, for everyone, for all Kenyans, that we will come out with this situation, and we have to be together, we have to fight together, and we have to win together to fight against COVID-19.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kamal Gupta. He is the chair of the Hindu Council of Kenya, one of the communities that was acknowledged by His Excellency this past weekend when he was giving us address when it comes to COVID-19 mitigation response efforts. Remember, we also had with us Mary Modhoni, who is the chair of Women in Business here in Kenya. Unfortunately, we lost that signal, but we will be touching on that discussion another date. But for now, we just want to bring the conversation to a close. We do trust that you have enjoyed yourself as much as we have. And remember, all of us have a role to play when it comes to the fight against COVID-19. As small as you may think your role is, or as big as you may think your role is, you have a responsibility as a citizen of this nation to just adhere to the measures that are being put in place. Remember, they are not to harm us, but to best protect us. And all this needs to be done only, and can only be done if we follow through with what we are being told, the guidelines that are being put in place to ultimately see that we flatten this curve of infections. Well, that is that in regards to that conversation. Thank you so much for staying with us. But remember, we have more of Good Morning Kenya coming in tomorrow. But before we get to call it a discussion, D.
I've said it any better. That is where we wrap it this morning. Just like you had mentioned, Jen, of course, Good Morning Kenya continues tomorrow. We do this every other day from 6 to 10 a.m. from Monday through Thursday. And that is where we wrap it up this morning. From me and on behalf of the entire team that made this show a success, we say thank you so much for watching. Till tomorrow, my name is Doreen Arange. Good morning.
Till tomorrow, have a lovely day. God bless. I'm Jane Omboy.